Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the second season for both Bridgerton and Sanditon. So, before I do head into my thoughts and feelings on season 2 of both of these shows, just a quick disclaimer. As far as talking about the current season 2 for both of these shows, I definitely do not plan on having any type of spoilers. I'm going to do my best to stay clear of spoilers and just try to speak as general as best I can and talk about the things that I liked or didn't like. But yeah, there may be probably definitely spoilers in regards to like the first season for both of these shows in order for me to even talk about season 2. So yeah, just leave it at that. If you are just not caught up with either of these shows, or you do have some sort of interest in the future in watching these shows, yeah, definitely stay clear. So yeah, that being said, let's get going. I seriously just adore both of these shows, Bridgerton and Sanditon. They definitely have their similarities, they have their differences, and I think that's what makes them both equally enjoyable in their own ways. They both take place during the Regency era. They tackle some simpler issues for sure. But they manage to kind of do their own unique little things that they kind of stand out apart from each other. That way you're not sitting there thinking, oh, this is dull or I'm bored, you know? So I definitely just really adore both of these shows for various different reasons, purposes, whatever, you know. But yeah, what I do love about both shows are they're just absolutely fun and entertaining and very engaging, full of really likable characters, full of characters that you might not like so much, you know, kind of the villainous characters in some ways. And yes, something else about both Bridgerton and Sanditon, there's just a vibrancy and colorfulness to both shows that I really appreciate, because I definitely watch my fair share of darker historical fiction and, you know, just the dreariness and bleakness, and yeah, sometimes a show like this with Bridgerton or Sanditon, it's just really nice and fun to have something a little bit more light and upbeat and colorful and vibrant and whatnot. Yeah, definitely comedic. I think that's something both of these shows have in common. I do think Sanditon is a bit more serious and darker in some ways, but at the same time I think it's still very highly comedic, whereas Bridgerton is like really, really highly comedic for the most part. Definitely played more into the comedy, I think, more than Sanditon does. But I love both of these shows, and I honestly, I don't know if I could pick one over the other, to be honest. It's like choosing a child. How do you choose your favorite Regency show? And I think also what I love about both of these shows is the fact that well, there's very obviously the Austen influences. Sanditon being an unpublished or rather unfinished work by Jane Austen. So obviously there's the Jane Austen influences there. And then Bridgerton definitely having those Jane Austen influences in there for sure. But yeah, even though they have those Austen influences in there, they still really raise the bar, I think, in terms of the type of period dramas for this type of genre, if you will. Because I think a lot of times why people don't like period dramas, I think a lot of times people think of them being very stuffy or dry or boring, and I think that can kind of be the case for much older period dramas, you know. But I think kind of this new wave and new batch of period dramas that have been coming out within like the last decade or so, and yeah, definitely here with things like Sanditon and Bridgerton, they really definitely raise the bar with this type of genre and kind of try to think outside the box and try to do some different things and really try to modernize it as best as they can for modern audiences to really connect with and really engage with, but also still allowing for those tropes and for those traditions that you normally get within this type of genre. So I think with like Bridgerton and Sanditon, I think people who have always been into this genre can definitely enjoy both of these shows, and then people who have maybe never been into this type of genre can definitely kind of get right on in there and have a great time. So I think both shows work so fantastically for all types of audiences. Kind of starting there, the things that I just really absolutely like about both shows, I guess I'll start to split off here, and I'll start off with Bridgerton Season 2. With Season 2 of Bridgerton, we are following another Bridgerton, this time Anthony Bridgerton, who is the eldest son. I think he's just the eldest child in general in the family. We're following Anthony Bridgerton and his very sexy romantic relationship with Kate Sharma, who arrives with her sister Edwina and their mother and whatnot. So yes, of course, Season 2, just like Season 1, all the good, juicy scandal and gossip and just wild and craziness, and yeah, very, very, very sexy season. I loved Season 1. I was very pleasantly surprised with Season 1. I wasn't sure how I was going to take it and how much I was going to enjoy it, and I just ended up being very pleasantly surprised with my total enjoyment of Season 1, and I loved that journey between Daphne and Simon and the direction it took, and just kind of some little twists and turns there, you know. So I was definitely super excited for Season 2, and the fact that this show is definitely going to be taking more of an kind of an anthology nature, if you will, meaning that each season is going to be rather different, and we're going to be losing certain characters. For instance, Season 1 was very much focused on Daphne and Simon, and they were the stars of that season. So here comes Season 2. They are not the stars of this season. The stars of this season are Kate and Anthony. So then, yeah, moving into Season 3 next year. Hopefully we get Season 3 next year. My understanding is that Benedict Bridgerton is supposed to be the one who is going to be falling in love next. So yeah, each season is going to be focused on a different Bridgerton and their romantic love life, pretty much, and everybody else is going to be pushed to the back, unfortunately, which is kind of sad, but that's kind of the nature of an anthology series. You know, you're going to get whole different casts, or you're just going to be losing chunks of cast pretty much and focusing on other people, which I'm excited about. I kind of think that really works brilliantly with this type of show, with the Bridgertons, and each child is going to get some sort of romance arc, you know. And I think too, what I liked about Season 2 in particular, like I said, though I absolutely loved Season 1, there was something about Season 2 that felt much more in line with a traditional period drama set during the Regency era, if that makes sense. There was definitely something much more about it that felt like a Jane Austen book, which I was really loving. Because with Season 1, they definitely just were all out there with some of the sexiness, and definitely showing a lot of nudity fairly early on, and just a lot of scandalous stuff. And yeah, the relationship between Daphne and Simon, I mean, they got together and got married like by the halfway point of that season, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly. And this season, Season 2, is definitely much more of a slow burn. And that's what I love about Regency period dramas especially. I love and crave that slow burn relationship, because then once things finally do agree, once things do finally agree and come together by the end of a season or a book or a movie or whatever, there's just so much satisfaction when your main couple gets together and whatnot. So yeah, Season 2 was definitely much more of a slow burn, whereas I think Season 1 was very rapid. You know, it was very, very rapid, and going from point A to point B to point C, you know, because the nature of that type of plot in that first season required that. Whereas the plot of this second season, it definitely requires something a lot more slow and in control, I think, and kind of thought-provoking. So I did. There was definitely something more traditional about Season 2 that I was absolutely in love with. So yeah, with Season 2 of Bridgerton, you get more drama, you get more comedy and humor, you get more sexiness, you get more of the great costuming, which may or may not be historically accurate, but that's okay. Because I'll talk about Sanditon in a minute, Sanditon I think definitely has more of the very classical, traditional costuming, I think, whereas Sanditon kind of takes a little bit more liberties there to be a bit more modern. But yeah, everything that you loved about season 1 is pretty much back in this second season. The great costuming and costume design and set design and great directing, great writing, great cast of characters as well as the supporting cast of characters. And I think what's also nice about this second season, I think there's a certain degree of more maturity, because you're dealing with two characters, Anthony and Kate, who are much older than some of the other characters on the show. There's definitely a degree of more maturity here with this season, since you do have Kate and Anthony who are older. And yeah, poor Kate has to deal with that whole state of, is she going to be a spinster or not? And that's a big no-no during this time period. Because for Anthony, we find out over the course of the season, what exactly happened to the Bridgerton father, how he died, what happened. And it's so heartbreaking, you guys. Once you get that flashback with their dad, it's like, oh, geez. And it's like those pieces start to come together with Anthony. Why Anthony is the way that he is. Why he feels such a heavy weight and responsibility taking care of his brothers and sisters and his mother and whatnot. Anthony can be very stubborn. He can be very cold. He can be very nonchalant. And you kind of see why he is the way that he is over the course of the season. He really needs to let loose. He needs to let himself be happy for once. And that's something that's so incredibly difficult for him. And yeah, for him at this point in his life, he sees that it's his obligation and his duty to marry, and to marry well, make sure he is marrying the right woman, and it has nothing to do with love. And then it's kind of on the same spectrum there with Kate to some degree. The maturity of her character as well. She doesn't have some of the same type of responsibilities as Anthony does in some ways, but she still has responsibilities to her family, very much like Anthony does at the end of the day. She has to take care of her mother. She has to take care of her sister Edwina. She sees it as her duty and obligation, this weight and responsibility, to make sure she marries off her sister Edwina, and that her sister is married off very well. It's quite important and vital. And you do get these mysteries throughout the season. Why is that exactly? Why is Kate so obsessed with getting Edwina married? What about herself? What about herself? Why can't she have love and happiness? Why is she kind of being cold and stubborn, very much like Anthony? That's what makes Anthony and Kate so absolutely perfect with one another. Just their mannerisms, their behaviors. There's this perfect balance between them, and yeah, the two of them just need to have fun, And yeah, when Kate and Anthony are in any given room, any situation together, that's when they do. The two actors just absolutely come alive together, and that lightness and frivolity and fun finally breaks through, and you see why the two of them work so well together, and everybody else around them sees it. Everybody else sees it but the two of them. So I did really enjoy kind of the higher level of maturity with this particular season, since Kate and Anthony are kind of older characters. And just there are certain type of responsibilities that other characters don't really have to worry about and whatnot. So all that being said about Bridgerton, I loved and adored this second season. It certainly made me very excited for a third season. Like I mentioned, I think season 3 is supposed to maybe be about Benedict. I was reading a few reviews, and I think the creators, they're still kind of 50-50 right now. They're not sure if they are going to go right to Benedict, or if they might kind of flip around to some of the other books and focus on another Bridgerton. I guess we'll see. I'm hoping they move to Benedict next, follow in line with the books. I would love to see Benedict next, because out of all the Bridgertons, I definitely don't really know too terribly much about him in some ways, because it's like they always give him plots and things to do, but it's like he still feels very just kind of, unknown, But yeah, I'm hoping every Bridgerton, by the time this show ends, I'm hoping we get through all of them and really get to know them. Because yeah, there's even the younger siblings who barely ever even get focused on as well. But yeah, I love this second season. Can't wait for the third season. Yeah, really, really fun. So moving on to my thoughts and feelings on season 2 of Sanditon. So what are we doing here with season 2? season 1 ended in a rather heartbreaking, frustrating way. Let's put it that way. We were all feeling it. We were all upset. Let me put this out there before I kind of get into how I felt about season 2. Even though I really enjoyed and appreciated season 2, I'm very appreciative and grateful of the fact that we even got a second season, because if you were there for the whole Sanditon journey, Sanditon had its season 1, and that was quite a few years ago, you guys. I can't quite remember. God, was it 2019? Seriously, oh my god, I should have looked that up. Was season 1 2019? Oh my god. Season 1 came out, and the thing is, it was very well received by fans, but it got cancelled. So, kind of, a couple years was kind of ticking by there, but then finally, I believe it was PBS who was like, okay, hey, we hear everybody crying out that they want some more of this show, we can't ignore that. Y'all seem very passionate and dedicated to this show. We're gonna renew it for 2 more seasons. So I'm definitely very grateful and appreciative of that fact that this show got picked up, especially, after that first season it was canceled and you just didn't hear anything for such a long time, and then all of a sudden, just this news out of nowhere, which was really bizarre and shocking, but great at the same time. But yeah, season 1, like I said, it ended in a really frustrating, heartbreaking manner, and season 1 ends, and we are building up to that relationship between Charlotte and Sydney. And it's progressing and it's moving, and the two of them are finally seeing eye to eye with one another and admitting their feelings and getting over their differences and whatnot. Only for, everything with Tom Parker and him trying to, raise Sanditon up from the ground and get it running and whatnot, turn it into this beach resort, Yeah, if I'm remembering, seriously, I've not watched season 1 in a long time, you guys, so I'm trying to remember a lot of the details. Hopefully I'm getting all the little details correct here. But yeah, Sydney ends up having to forcibly get married to another woman who has money, because with this money he can help his brother and get Sanditon going and functioning and whatnot. So unfortunately, the Sydney relationship, as a result of that, the sacrifices that Sydney ends up making, the Sydney and Charlotte relationship falls apart, unfortunately. Now, I was upset. I was devastated. I was frustrated like every other person watching that first season. But the thing is, I found the ending of that first season to just be very realistic, because I have read several Jane Austen books. I have watched several Jane Austen adaptations and Jane Austen inspired adaptations and this and that, And the thing with Jane Austen, all of her books, for the most part, I believe, that they all have very happy endings, and the couples, whatever their differences, they get over them and they get together and there's a happy ending, So that's kind of what I really liked about the risks and chances that Sanditon took in that first season. By ending it in a rather heartbreaking, frustrating way, there was a degree of realism to that I, despite my frustration, that I really appreciated that they took that risk and that chance. So the thing was, I was kind of okay if there was just the one season. I was really fine if the one season was it. And I didn't mind if there was no more seasons, to be quite honest. Because I feel like the creator of Sanditon, I feel like the one season was all he wanted to do, because it's Andrew Davies, right? I feel like he wanted to just do the one season, but then everybody was all wild and crazy and went nuts about that ending, and then I think to save face, I think he was like, oh yeah, I intended to do more seasons, but hey, we got canceled, So I feel like there's only ever just the intent to do one season anyway, but I think peer pressure almost, pressure from the fans, I feel like that was kind of like, oh, well, no, made a boo-boo here, we need to fix this. But yeah, I was personally kind of fine with that first season and kind of that more realistic take of how that first season ended. But yeah, that being said, enough of season 1, let's get into season 2. Season 2, we open and we continue with the heartbreak. You guys, like I said, I am definitely not going to get into spoilers here because, I mean, Because prior to season 2 being filmed, everybody knew that Theo James, who played Sydney, Theo James made it known through like social media he was not coming back for the show. And he didn't really have too many reasons why, you know, because I think it was, because I know he has the time traveler's wife coming out and everything. I think that was probably what was in the way, to be quite honest. He had already moved on. So he made it very well known he wasn't coming back for the second season. So I think that was kind of the thing heading into the second season. Okay, what's going on with Sydney? What are they going to do with the Sydney character? So yeah, getting into season 2, like I said, I'm definitely going to try my best not to have any spoilers here. Yeah, Charlotte is brought back to Sanditon for a reason that definitely has to do with Sydney. And it's not great. Take that how you will. So Charlotte returns. This time she returns with her sister Allison, because we know Charlotte has many siblings and sisters, I think. So this time she's joined by her sister Allison. She does get in the employ of a man named Mr. Colburn. Mr. Colburn has a ward that he's looking after, like a teenage girl, and then he has his own daughter, whose mother has died. So yeah, Mr. Colburn is hiring Charlotte to become a governess this season, and yeah, there's kind of this very Jane Eyre atmospheric vibe going on with Charlotte's plot this season. It's very Jane Eyre, if you will. And then yeah, her sister Allison in the meantime. There's also the arrival of the army. The army really comes in and disrupts some stuff. The army provides for a couple different things. They provide some new business deals that Tom Parker can kind of deal with the army, and then also just romantic subplots. So that's definitely where Allison comes into play. Allison definitely falls for one of the soldiers in the army and whatnot. And yeah, there's also Colonel Lennox, who is joining. He's in charge of the army, and yeah, Charlotte has many men this season. She has Colonel Lennox, she has Mr. Colburn. It's like, okay, who's going to be her new love interest this year? Because yeah, Sydney is no longer part of the equation, and yeah, Mr. Stringer, played by Leo Suter, yeah, he is no longer part of the equation either. So that's 2 men that are off for Charlotte. So yeah, Charlotte definitely has her fair share of gentleman callers this season. And yeah, the Parkers, Tom and Arthur, brothers of Sydney, yeah, even though Sanditon is up and flourishing and it's running, things are going pretty well. The thing is, there is still a degree of struggle there in order for them to keep this up and maintain it, you know? And yeah, the army is either there, it's there for a good thing, for a bad thing. And yeah, they definitely need funds, and they got to be careful with what they're doing this entire season. And then as far as some other subplots, we do have Esther returning this season, as well as her brother Edward. You know, Esther was one of my favorite parts of season 1, and I really love that relationship between her and Lord Babington. And once again, kind of a similar thing with Theo James. Yeah, we have no Lord Babington this season, and I don't know if Mark Stanley, who played Lord Babington, I don't know if he just had some scheduling conflicts as well, like Theo James did, or if he just didn't want to come back, you know? And that's kind of the thing with this whole season. There's definitely quite a number of characters missing in action, and their absences have to be explained. So yeah, I was really upset that Lord Babington didn't return this season, because I absolutely enjoyed that relationship with Esther and Lord Babington, and her coming out of her shell, you know, and finally getting out of that toxic relationship that she had with her stepbrother Edward. Yeah, Esther's story was just, it's like I liked it to some degree, but it was very much just that, a subplot, you know, very much just a subplot, just for the sake of having Esther in the season. And yeah, I mean, her story just did absolutely nothing connecting with anything else over the course of the story, you know, which was kind of frustrating. Her whole plot, it's like if you just cut out her plot and didn't have anything else going on in the rest of the shows, I mean, her plot would just make for her own little TV show right there. You don't need anything else going on in the show, you know? And we also have Georgiana returning as well. I was definitely a lot more engaged with Georgiana's story this season. I still really appreciated her in season 1 for sure, and her connection with Sydney, you know, and Sydney having to look after her and take care of her. And yeah, yeah, Georgiana continues this season. You know, she has an incredible amount of wealth and whatnot, and she has to be careful of fortune hunters and people looking to use and abuse her. And Georgiana is a very strong, intelligent woman, but even though she is strong and intelligent and independent, you know, she can easily succumb to being naive and ignorant, you know, if she doesn't watch out for herself and really pay attention to the people who are surrounding her, you know. And yeah, she can get frustrated by all the nagging from the Parkers and whatnot, and all the characters kind of surrounding her who keep repeatedly telling her, hey, be careful, be careful, be careful. And you get the idea that Georgiana, it's like she's just starting to get so fed up with it. Like, okay, y'all, I am intelligent, I am a young, independent woman, I'm not stupid, you know. But at the same time, it's like you understand where everyone else is coming from too, you know. Like, hey, you have all this wealth, you need to be careful or you're going to regret it. But yeah, I definitely was a lot more engaged with Georgiana's story this season and found it very, very interesting and fascinating. Very frustrating, the final episode. You guys, I was like, God damn it. And yeah, what I really liked about the second season, even though it's still very fun and entertaining and light and energetic, comedic in places, there is definitely a degree of this season being a lot darker. Especially kind of as soon as you open with the first episode. There's a reason why the season is darker and whatnot. There is definitely a bigger degree of darkness and seriousness, maturity. But yeah, while still having a lot of that fun back and forth with the characters and whatnot. There's also some great additions to this season that I loved. I loved the introduction of Alexander Lajos, who plays Charles Lockhart. He is a painter. His story primarily weaves in with Georgiana's. I was just so thrilled. I had 2 shows this year with Alexander Lajos, both Outlander and this second season. I was like, yes, thank you, because I've not seen him in anything else, I don't think, since Versailles. I loved him in Versailles, and then when he was Mordred and Merlin, you guys. I'm just glad Alexander Lajos is getting a lot of work recently, because he's such a great actor. There's also the addition of Tom Weston Jones, who plays Colonel Lennox. I was really thrilled as well with his casting on the show, because he's another actor I've seen on quite a number of things over the years, and I was like, yay, goody. And then looking at my notes here, the 3 other additions that we have, these are 3 actors I don't think I've ever really seen in anything else, but I still love them on this show. We have Frank Blake, who plays Captain Fraser, and Maxim Ace, who plays Captain Carter. They are both soldiers in the army with Colonel Lennox and whatnot. Both of these guys, kind of this back and forth between them with Charlotte's sister Allison. I loved that whole thing. I loved both of their characters, especially Captain Fraser. Woo! And then, yeah, playing Colburn, Mr. Colburn, who is Charlotte's employer when she becomes a governess, that's played by Ben Lloyd Hughes. I really loved his addition as well. I think he was a worthy follow-up, I guess, to Theo James, because, yeah, when I found out Theo James was not coming back, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. Who's going to replace Theo James? So yeah, replacing Theo James is definitely Ben Lloyd Hughes and Tom Weston Jones, you know, kind of that back and forth. Is Charlotte going to wind up with either of these men? Maybe, maybe not, who knows. Whereas I think season 2 of Bridgerton was very focused and very meticulously plotted out, and things, you know, came together really great by the end of season 2 of Bridgerton. I do think season 2 of Sanditon, there was a bit of a struggle there. I think with the show having to kind of regain its footing to some extent, because like I said, I think that first season was back in 2019 if I'm not mistaken, so there's been a bit of a gap there, and that gap sometimes is not a good thing, because I think actors really have to kind of find their footing again. Story writing has to find its footing again. So I do think season 2 of Sanditon, even though I really still did enjoy it, there were kind of these extreme ups and downs with the show trying to get where it needs to get and get the characters where they need to get and whatnot. And yeah, having to deal with the fact too, you don't have all your returning players. And there's like pros and cons to a lot of that. Like Arthur Parker, for instance, I loved the much more heavy use of Arthur Parker this season, because last season, for instance, he was kind of just seen as a goofy idiot, you know, and if I'm remembering correctly, because there was the sister too, right? There was the sister also, and the two of them just constantly being really melodramatic and acting like they were hypochondriacs and whatnot. And it was really nice to see like a character like Arthur, you know, with like that character of the sister being just out of the picture, and plus even Thea James being out of the picture, that kind of allowing a character like Arthur to really rise and shine with the story, and him really get to do things and really influence how things are going, you know? So it's kind of things like that, where you get certain characters who benefit from some other characters just being totally absent from the show, you know? But then other plots where there's missing characters and there's just something missing, you know, like Esther, like I said, Esther kind of being one of those characters, and her plot just feeling very much like a subplot, and it's like, why at the end of the day is her plot even really here, you know, when we could be maybe focusing on what's going on with Allison, what's going on with Georgiana, what's going on with Charlotte, you know, because, yeah, all three of those women, for instance, they have some really deep, heavy plots and characters that they're interacting with that really need to be sorely fleshed out, and sometimes I think some of that stuff is not entirely fleshed out in ultimately satisfactory ways. And yeah, I feel like if other subplots were kind of just taken out, we would have had a bit more time with some of these characters to really kind of get a better grasp and understanding of what's going on. But yeah, Sanditon Season 2. Still, I did really enjoy it. I'm grateful and appreciative that it's there, and I'm definitely really looking forward to the third season. I'm assuming this third season is going to be it, which I'm kind of sad about. But yeah, we shall see how it goes. So you guys, that is it for my Season 2 discussion on both Bridgerton and Sanditon. In the comments below, have you guys seen either of these shows? Which one do you prefer, or do you like them both equally? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.